A real estate agent in Dallas made $2.3 million last year selling houses. His own net worth, $340,000. His quietest client, a 34-year-old nurse who's never bought a single property, just crossed $1.2 million. Let that sit for a second. The guy selling the American dream can't afford to live inside it. The woman who never touched it is quietly winning. If you grew up believing real estate is how regular people build wealth, you were told half a story. And the half they left out is the half that matters. By the end of this video, you're going to understand something most 35-year-olds with a mortgage still haven't figured out. Why two people earning identical salaries, making identical sacrifices, end up in completely different financial universes 20 years later. It has almost nothing to do with which asset they picked. But before I get there, I need you to hold on to two questions. First, why do the wealthiest families in America keep less than 30% of their net worth in their primary home, while middle-class families keep over 60%? And second, if stocks historically outperform real estate on pure returns, why does almost every millionaire you've ever met own property? Both answers are coming. Stay with me. Let me tell you about Marcus, 28 years old, software engineer in Austin, making $142,000 a year. In 2019, Marcus did what his parents begged him to do. He bought a house. 4 bedrooms, nice neighborhood, $385,000 with 10% down. Everyone clapped. His mom cried. His dad said the words every American father is legally required to say at closing. Now you're building real wealth. Across town, his college roommate Priya did something her parents thought was insane. She kept renting a 1-bedroom for $1,650 a month and dumped everything else into a boring index fund. No house, no equity, no American dream. Just an app on her phone that went up and down and mostly up. 5 years later, Marcus's house is worth $510,000. Sounds amazing, right? A $125,000 gain. Except Marcus paid $94,000 in interest, $31,000 in property taxes, $22,000 in maintenance, $18,000 in insurance, and $14,000 in transaction costs. He hasn't paid yet, but will the day he sells. His actual gain after the champagne wears off is around $9,000 over 5 years. On a $38,500 down payment. That's roughly 4% annualized, and that's before we talk about the opportunity cost of his monthly payments versus what Priya was doing. Priya's index fund portfolio, $284,000. She's liquid, she's mobile. She got a job offer in Seattle last month and said yes the same afternoon. Marcus is still doing the math on whether he can afford to move. This is the thing nobody tells you about real estate. It doesn't just hold your money, it holds you. Now here's where I have to be honest with you, because if this video just becomes stocks good, houses bad, I'm lying to you the same way the real estate industrial complex has been lying for 3 generations. The truth is messier and far more interesting. Thomas Stanley spent years researching American millionaires for a book called The Millionaire Next Door. What he found wrecked every assumption people have about wealth in this country. The typical American millionaire doesn't drive a BMW, doesn't live in a mansion, doesn't wear a Rolex. He drives a used pickup, lives in a house worth less than his neighbors assume, and has spent 30 years quietly accumulating assets that produce income while he sleeps. Notice what I said. Assets that produce income while he sleeps. Your primary residence does not do this. It eats, it demands, it calls you at 11 p.m. When the water heater explodes. It is not an asset in any meaningful sense. It's a forced savings account wearing a costume, and it charges you rent for the privilege. But a rental property? A duplex with 2 tenants covering your mortgage and leaving $400 a month in your pocket. That's a different animal entirely. That's an asset. That's the thing your grandfather meant when he said real estate built his wealth, because the real estate that built his wealth wasn't the house he lived in. It was the 3 small rental properties he bought in 1974 and never talked about at dinner. This is the distinction that quietly separates the middle class from the wealthy in America. Not stocks versus real estate. Consumed assets versus producing assets. Now let me pull the curtain back on the stock market, because I'm not about to let that one off the hook either. Between 1990 and 2024, the S&P 500 averaged around 10.5% annually before inflation. Real estate nationally averaged around 4.5%. On paper, stocks destroy real estate. It's not even close. But here's what the charts don't show you: behavior. The average mutual fund investor, according to a long-running study by a firm called Dalbar, has underperformed the actual funds they invested in by nearly 4 percentage points a year for 3 decades. Not because the market failed them, because they panic sold in 2008 and in 2020, and whenever CNBC put a red graphic on the screen. Real estate has a hidden superpower, and it's this: you can't check its price every 17 seconds on your phone. Your house doesn't have a ticker symbol. You don't wake up at 3 a.m., open an app, and see that your kitchen is down 12% because somebody in Tokyo sneezed. The illiquidity of real estate, the thing finance professors call a disadvantage, is, for most humans, the feature that saves them from themselves. So now you have two assets. One has better math, the other has better psychology. And the right answer depends entirely on which kind of human you actually are, not which kind of human you wish you were. Here's the pivot, the reframe that changes everything. Wealth isn't built by picking the right asset. It's built by understanding a concept Morgan Housel writes about in The Psychology of Money, that getting rich and staying rich are two completely different skills. Getting rich requires swinging big. Staying rich requires not getting wiped out. And the people who die wealthy in this country almost always own both. Stocks for the growth, real estate for the stability, businesses or side income for the leverage, and cash for the nights they can't sleep. The question was never real estate versus stocks. That framing is a trap that keeps you arguing on Reddit instead of building. The real question is, what is this specific dollar in my hand right now supposed to do for me? If it's supposed to grow aggressively over 30 years and I promise not to touch it, it goes into the market. Low-cost index funds, automated, boring, ignored. That's the Priya move. If it's supposed to give me a place to live, force me to save, and anchor me to a community, and I'm okay being anchored, it goes into a primary residence. But I buy less house than the bank says I can afford. Way less. Because the bank is not my friend. If it's supposed to produce monthly cash flow and let me eventually leave my job, it goes into a rental property in a market I actually understand, with tenants who can actually pay, not a speculation, a business. And here's the part that'll sting a little. Most people don't lose at wealth because they picked stocks over real estate, or real estate over stocks. They lose because they bought a house they couldn't afford, financed a car they didn't need, and told themselves they'd start investing next year for 11 years in a row. The asset was never the problem. The decisions around the asset were the problem. Remember those 2 questions I promised to answer? Wealthy families keep less of their net worth in their primary home because they figured out, usually the hard way, that a house you live in doesn't compound. It just sits there looking expensive. They put the rest into things that actually grow or produce. And the reason almost every millionaire owns property isn't because real estate beats stocks. It's because owning property taught them patience. It forced them to hold something for 20 years without selling it in a panic. That discipline, once learned, is the single most valuable financial skill a human being can develop. And then they apply it to everything else they own. Marcus isn't doomed. Priya isn't a genius. They're both running experiments, and they'll both be fine if they keep going. But if you're watching this at 2 a.m., wondering which path is yours, I'll tell you what I've come to believe after watching a lot of regular people get quietly rich and a lot of impressive people get quietly wiped out. The house won't save you. The stocks won't save you. The only thing that has ever built wealth for anybody, in any market, in any decade, is the version of you that keeps showing up on the weeks when nothing is working and no one is watching. Pick the asset that lets that version of you stay in the game the longest. That's the one that builds wealth fast. If this video resonated with you, don't keep the knowledge to yourself. Like the video, subscribe to stay updated, and share is a step toward building a stronger community of growth-minded people. Be part of it.